Can you imagine a civilization so powerful, so incredibly arrogant, that they looked at everything they built and literally asked the sky, who is mightier than us? Well, let's dive into the story of a people who threw that challenge out there, and the storm that answered them.
So our story begins sometime after the era of Prophet Noah. We're in a land called Ahqaf, which is right between what we now call Yemen and Oman. This was the home of the people of Ad, and their capital city was the stuff of legends. Iram, the city of pillars.
And when we talk about these people, the sheer scale of everything is just astounding. The sources describe them as actual giants, with bodies as massive and strong as the mountains they lived in. And their pride was even bigger. Their city's pillars were so tall they were said to talk to the sky. And they didn't just build houses, they carved them straight out of the mountainsides.
You know, their arrogance wasn't just a general vibe. It was super specific. They truly believed they were the masters of the entire world. They'd boast that the wind was basically their slave, and that their children were so strong they could bend mountains. As far as they were concerned, they were invincible, the rightful inheritors of the earth, destined to live forever.
So into this world of just off-the-charts pride, Allah sends a messenger, the prophet Hud. And his message was incredibly simple, a call back to humility, a reminder to worship the one true God. But as you can imagine, that message was about to hit a solid brick wall of arrogance.
The disconnect was just huge. On one side, you have Prophet Hud saying, "Look, I'm warning you about a punishment you can't even begin to imagine." And on the other, they just laughed. Their leaders, kicking back on golden thrones, pretty much mocked him, saying, "Hey, if your words were so powerful, our amazing palaces would have crumbled by now." For them, his warning wasn't a mercy, it was an insult.
Now, before the really big punishment, there were signs. You know, little warnings, strange events that should have made them stop and think. But here's the thing. When you're that convinced of your own power, you see everything through that lens.
First, this deep, weird sound started echoing from the sky at night. No thunder, no lightning, just this sound. They brushed it off, calling it the voice of the mountains. Then, the earth itself trembled, but only slightly, just enough to spook the animals. Instead of being scared, they were proud. They actually laughed and said, "See, even the earth is afraid of how strong we are." These were the last calls to reason, and they just flew right by them.
And so, the first real stage of their punishment began, and it wasn't with a huge bang or a crash. No, it started with a deafening silence. The sky, the very thing they thought brought them all their wealth, just stopped giving.
And you can see how their confidence just slowly crumbled over 3 long years. In year 1, they're like, a little drought, no big deal. We're strong enough to handle it. But then year 2 hits, and things get desperate. Rivers are gone, animals are dying, and thirst is all anyone can think about. By the time year 3 rolls around, the land is as hard as stone, and all that arrogant laughter, it's been replaced by a grim, dead silence. So their pride was shattered, but their hearts still hadn't changed. They were just desperate. And it's right in this moment of pure desperation that they're given what looks like one final merciful choice.
Imagine this. After 3 solid years of staring at a blank, empty sky, one day, 3 different clouds appear on the horizon. Then, a voice from the heavens tells them to choose one of the clouds for their people. For the first time in years, hope just floods back into the city.
The options were a red cloud, a white cloud, and a black one. Their leaders, laughing with relief, didn't even hesitate. They pointed at the black cloud, thinking, "That's the one. That one's gotta be heavy with the rain and mercy we've been begging for."
So as that dark cloud starts rolling towards their city, a massive party breaks out. People are dancing, shouting for joy. They're absolutely convinced their suffering is over. Their salvation, they think, has finally arrived.
But there was no mercy in that cloud. There was only vengeance. The first gust of wind didn't hit them with raindrops. It hit them with dust and stones. This wasn't rain. It was a furious, roaring storm of punishment. And in an instant, all that joy curdled into pure, raw terror.
And the storm's duration is so important here. This wasn't just a quick little squall. We're talking about a furious wind that raged nonstop for 7 nights and 8 straight days. It was completely inescapable, a relentless, terrifying force.
The destruction was absolute.
The wind tore giant trees out by the roots, threw animals around like toys, and shattered their stone idols. The very palaces they'd carved out of mountains were ripped apart and scattered like dust. People were snatched right out of their homes, pulled into the storm, and their entire city was slowly, methodically buried under a new mountain of sand.
Then, after 8 incredibly long days, the wind just stopped. The roaring was over, and all that was left was this profound, chilling silence hanging over the land that used to be a mighty empire.
The way this scene is described is just haunting. There was nothing left of their civilization. No pillars, no palaces, just a vast, endless sea of sand. And scattered all across it were their bodies, described as looking like the hollowed-out, uprooted trunks of palm trees. Just empty, broken, and powerless.
But, not everyone perished in the storm. Prophet Hud and that small group of believers who actually listened to his warning, they were kept safe. Allah sheltered them in a mountain cave, completely untouched by the storm that was annihilating their entire nation right outside.
And as Prophet Hud looked out over the ruins of his city, his people, he summed up the entire tragedy with one simple, timeless truth. This really is the core lesson of the whole story. The end of arrogance is always destruction.
And that leaves all of us with a question that kind of echoes from their sandy graves right into our world today. The people of Ad were convinced their honor came from their strength, their money, the incredible cities they built. But their story really forces us to ask ourselves, where does true, lasting honor come from? Is it found in all that worldly power and glory? Or is it found in humility and obedience to a higher power?